All right, so this next one, I'm going to talk a little bit about Unit 4 of the Delta course. And again, I am doing this through Nile, Nile. That's based out of the UK. One of the reasons, if you're wondering if you should do a course prior to taking the Delta exam, I've found it very useful so far because it's good preparation. Although like you can write this exam on your own, no problems. It happens December and June or July, I think. So it's twice a year that they hold this. They have an intake of candidates. One of the benefits of going through a course like this is that they do break it down into different units, and they have you focus on something every week. Now, right now we're on week 5, which is a break week, which seems odd to be paying for time off. It's like I didn't pay for time off. I'm paying to be educated or to have access to this information. But given that the Delta is very theory heavy, Delta Module 1, that's what I should make that clear. I am working on the Delta Module 1 right now, and a lot of theory, a lot of reading, and so having a week off is good. I just don't know why they would charge you for it, basically. But if you should, whether you should or not, I know there are some people who offer, like, I think it's personal tutoring, they'll like one-on-one tutoring, that they will train you up. They will take you through the Delta course on their own, and you pay them a certain fee or whatever it is. I'm not sure. I can't speak to the validity of them. I know that if you do pass the Delta, and you have a course, if you can set up a syllabus yourself, I think anyone can sort of train you to take the Delta exam. You can also do it on your own. There's no requirement to take a course at all. This course has no bearing on the final result. It's merely preparatory. That's it. Same with Module 3 as well. There's no, you can take a course for that as well. Module 2, I'm not sure if there is a course. I think there might be. I don't know. I haven't looked into Module 2 just yet. But Delta's Modules 1 and 3, there are associated courses that are put on by Nile, and you can take them or not. You can still write the test. You can submit your practicum, your paper or whatever it is. That's perfectly fine. It's been okay. It's been good to keep me motivated. Basically, our tutor said it is a very intensive, lot of reading course, 1 hour a day, and then 3 or 4 hours on Saturday and Sunday. That's what you're looking at committing if you're going to do a course or in your preparation to take the exam. If you're not spending an hour a day doing some sort of reading or exercises, then it's hard to sort of see how you'll be able to learn the requisite terminology and method of analysis that the exam requires, because there is a very specific format they want you to follow, and they do publish a manual, a Delta Module 1 manual, or a guidebook or candidate book, whatever it's called, that they show you, they give you examples and example answers and stuff like that, like do this, don't do this, make sure you read the question, and things along those lines. And they give you all the essential reading, things that you should be familiar with. There's no secret to the Delta. There's no secret to Module 1. What is the issue is whether or not you are able to respond to the question, only the question, nothing more, and be able to talk at a high level using proper terminology about what you are analyzing. So, and if they give you explain the present perfect continuous, are you able to explain what that is and break it down and give an example? If they gave you an example of I don't know, what's the difference between fan and van? These are what are they? Minimal pairs. There you go. So the difference of one letter or one sound that can cause confusions for some learners. Can you explain this and give examples? Likewise with speaking and writing, are you able to look at a piece of writing or read a script from a piece of speaking and analyze what the speaker or the writer is doing well and what they're not doing well? and how do you back that up? Can you notice the verb tenses they're using? Are you able to distinguish? Are you able to read the phonetic script? If it's a spoken script, can you read the phonetic script and see where they are pronouncing well and mispronouncing words, which is very, very complicated. You have to read those scripts very closely. Anyway, so to this one, I want to look at Unit 4, which has 5 or 6 sections here: discourse, writing, listening, phonology, lexis, and then another exam focus there. Discourse, again, this talks a lot about it's such obvious. It's talking about our communication. It refers to discourse analysis for language teachers by I think it's Martin McCarthy. I can't remember his name. M. McCarthy. Read chapters 1, 2, 3, and 5. There's six chapters in the whole book. I don't know why they skipped chapter 4, and I think chapter 6 is actually recommended before. So, excuse me. But reading this book, actually, this one, Discourse Analysis, and there's another one, I think, Cook. His book is also talks a lot about discourse, and chapters 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I think there's like 7 chapters, or maybe there's only 6 chapters in that book too. So just read the whole thing. You may as well. They start talking. It sort of overlaps a little bit, and this course takes a lot from these books, and that's why they recommend you to read them, to go to the original sources and see it for yourself. Discourse, honestly, how do you describe discourse? It's discourse. It's talking. It's communication. It's the interaction between people, basically, and then being able to, and it's analyzing how people interact in spoken discourse in a language learning context. So here in this unit, they talk about turn taking, adjacency pairs. So this is an example of an adjacency pair. Hi, how's it going? I'm good. You? So it's like sort of when someone says something, there's sort of a typical response that goes with it. Coffee or tea? Nothing, thanks. Coffee or tea? Coffee, please. So there's an expected sort of response to that question. If someone asks you, how you feeling? How you doing? Oh, I'm great. I'm good. Oh, weather's nice, isn't it? Yeah, it is. So that's sort of very, what would you call, small talk? I guess it's small talk. It's adjacency pairs is the fancy word for fancy terminology for small talk, basically. Transactional discourse, how speakers speak to get things done. So this is like your train tickets purchases at a hotel room, getting hotel room and stuff like that. Maybe even renting a room or paying a bill. So it's stuff that has sort of an immediate application value to it. Social interaction, talking to people, and the topic. And that is a discourse topic, how topic is probably more effectively studied as a fluid, dynamic, speaker-driven process where individuals divert the talk for their own purposes. Basically saying that we're kind of selfish in what we say and what we're talking about. I guess that's sort of accurate. But this is all part of the whole discourse analysis. And again, if you started reading this book, it's very, very wordy, I'll tell you the truth. That's why I kind of like having this course, is because it does take you through the main points of what discourse analysis is. What is discourse? Turn taking, operating politely, adjacency pairs, transactional language, social interactional, cooperative creation, like topics, choosing a topic. Let's take a look at what is discourse. How do they define it again? Arndt et al. In 2000 identified 5 key notions central to understanding discourse. Oh my goodness, so there you go. That's all of them. Do they give us just a simple answer of what discourse is? Language is, as McCarthy indicates, more than a matter of putting one sentence after another. Well, is it? It involves complex processes, some of which we'll examine anyway. So, yeah, right. so this talks about what discourse is and breaks it down, which is good for reading. Again, this whole core, this unit, and the idea of discourse, actually, it strikes me as some, if you're an ESL or a language educator, not just ESL, language educator, language teacher, and maybe you work at a school or a private institute, and imagine you're around the water cooler or taking a break, coffee break or something. Discourse is what you'd be talking about your learners, about your students, but none of what you're saying is directly applicable to the room, to your classroom. You can't really use it. Instead, it's understanding the idea of what's going on in the classroom when you are teaching, and why you teach certain things, such as adjacency pair. So that's like when you introduce the idea of greeting someone, what's the proper way to greet someone in return? Transactional language. How do you buy a train ticket? How do you buy an airplane ticket? How do you deal with customer service? Things like that. So understanding the why you're doing this, it's not directly applicable to your students at all. I mean, if you start talking about what is discourse to your students, they'd be like, why do I need to know this? Can I just please learn how to buy a ticket? That's it. So this discourse is highly theoretical, mainly applicable for the Delta program, and basically puts down in writing all of the water cooler conversations you've had about, isn't it neat how when you teach this, students do that? But there's no directly applicable value to it, to tell you the truth. That's my impression of it so far. Who knows? Maybe by the end of the course, that will change. Um, Language of communication, relationships across utterances, basically. I guess if that's how you want to describe it, and it's not just speaking; it's also written texts as well. I guess, right? I mean, anyway, so yeah, discourse is talking about communication and why you're doing the things you're doing in the classroom. Writing, again. So this there's no text for writing. However, Trisha Hedges' writing, the introduction to Trisha Hedges' writing, it's like 25 pages, some introduction, but that gives a very good survey of the different issues in the field of writing, of ESL writing and language teaching and stuff like that. Um, Decent read. I'm sure you can find copies to borrow at libraries and stuff like that. It's a pretty well known book. But yeah, I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't say too much about it. I do know that it's like the only book on writing that this course sort of recommends. Key terminology, again, reinforcement activities, intensive versus extensive writing. So intensive writing for a specific purpose. Extensive would be more like free form, or what do you call it, brainstorming and stuff like that. Accuracy or fluency, do you have to write the sentence or grammatical constructs perfectly, or is it more for fluency, just practicing writing basically? Subskill, style, tone, appropriateness, so being appropriate in your word choice when you're writing as well. This again talks about some of the things of why you should use writing. Writing is often sort of seen as one of these things that you should do at home, that it's for homework, and then you bring it in, probably because, being an educator and watching students write can be kind of boring. Well, it's not. It's a good time to, I guess, sober up as well. But that's not the only reason why you should be using writing in your class. Again, if it depends on accuracy, if you're going for writing specific sentences or specific phrases, or if you're going more for fluency, just giving I call them the kids, the students, the learners, a chance to sit down and focus for 15 minutes, just brainstorm, give them a topic, and write. Practice. One of the other things, though, to do with writing, whether your students or the learners are preparing for a paper-based test or a computer test, to give them that 15 minutes to practice in that situation of using the pen to write an essay, using a computer to write an essay. Doesn't sound like something that like a big deal, but getting used to typing and writing in English, it's still a skill. And honestly, if you've ever learned a language, Finding 15 minutes on your own time? Yes, there's lots of chunks of 15 minutes where you could do something, but do you? And that's why in class, when you start using writing as an assignment, or like you have a portion of the class dedicated to writing, that's one of the reasons that you're giving them this focused effort, focused time to practice their writing skills, and then probably incorporating some of the things that you've covered in class that day. Different types of writing activities: accuracy and fluency, sentence level and reinforcement, and whole text practice. So writing a letter, or writing like just writing one sentence, or writing a whole letter. Relevance and interest value. So this talks about all the different reasons why, or types of writing activities that you can do that need to be preparing for IELTS. So if someone is preparing for IELTS, you wouldn't get them to write a manual on how to make coffee. You'd have them analyze a manual on how to make coffee, or like a diagram on how to make coffee, but you wouldn't be getting them to, and if they're taking the academic or general, academic, you have to write an essay. General test, you have to write a letter, I think. So if they're taking general, you wouldn't be teaching them how to write academically, because that's not what a letter requires. Moving on to integrating writing to the lesson. Yeah, so the course book analysis, making sure there are some people who publish books who think they're good and then they kind of aren't. So you do have to be able to look at a book, and this is part of the Delta course as a whole, is choosing the appropriate textbook to use for your class. Is it Collins? I think Collins has a series of books for IELTS focused skills. So IELTS speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and vocabulary building and stuff like that. So they do have a textbook per skill set being tested, and you can use those. Those are pretty good books, as well as they are very focused in what they do, and you can approach it. You can basically just take it and work through it with your students if you need it, or with the learners, the IELTS preppers or the TOEFL preppers as well. I don't know about TOEFL. I've been a while since I've taught TOEFL. So that's writing, one of the easier ones, thank goodness. Right, listening difficulties and perception and comprehension. So this again goes back to Penny Ewer's book, Teaching Listening Comprehension. Again, chapters 1 to 3 deals with the issues of using listening materials in class, either they're authentic or not authentic, if they're scripted or if it's off the cuff sort of thing, and where some learners can have problems in transitioning from classroom-based listening exercises to real-world listening exercises. Because in classroom, you're using a textbook that's a very clean presentation of the English language, and then all of a sudden they meet someone on the street, or they're trying to buy a ticket, and they have no idea what they're saying because there's an accent. They're eliding all their words, or maybe they're sick that day and they have more of a nasal sound to their nose. Who knows? To their speech, or there's a lot of noise going on as well. So that can also contribute to people's not being able to understand very well. Strongly recommended reading, 1996. I don't know if I have this one. I can't remember what book this is. Module 8. I'm sure I have it somewhere, but anyway. And again, key terminology. Make sure you know these books, these words. Being able to fit these somewhere into your explanations of whatever paper or task that you're doing. You have to use lots of terms. Just brain dump all of the terms that you have learned throughout the course and throughout your studies, I guess, right? Learning to predict stuff like this. Okay, so word stress, phonology, going back to the phonemic script again. And Adrian Underhill. Oh, wow, so you have to read level 2. I don't think I've finished level 1 yet. Oh, it's a long book. It's long and not the most riveting of books. Sorry, Mr. Underhill, but I just, every time I read, I can read a couple pages and then gotta take a break, sort of thing. But well worth it, as he's very thorough in his explanation of the sounds and how our mouths actually make the English vowels and consonants and all the different phonemes and morphemes that make up the English language. Word stress, syllables, primary and secondary stress, and how stress can shift in certain compound word combinations, volume, length, pitch, and then looking at how stress shifts from one syllable to another in derivatives, such as geography to geographical. Oh, look at that. Geography, geographical. Why does it do that? Why? Good question. They talk about that later on. Unstressed syllables. Good question. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is if you add like ick, ing, ic, ed. How sometimes those endings can shift the stress of the words. So unless suggestion, suggest, suggestion, intelligence, intelligent, intelligently, wanton, wantonly, elephant, elephant-like, elephant-ish. I don't know if that's accurate. Accurate, accurately, accuracy, right? Polite, politely. So adding an ending to make it an adverb, how it shifts the stress sometimes. They also talk about, they deal with the phonemics as well. Some rules of thumb. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so agree probably says tendencies rather than hard and fast rules when it comes to word stress, as Underhill says on page 55. So dealing with this, they read aloud the following words. Gander. What general rules or tendencies can we infer? There's lots of words. And what information do we need to know? Okay, so one of the things that happens here actually is that you have to break down these words. They don't do it here, where they talk about the stress marks for right there. You see that. So export. It deals with and here as well. So very, very sort of subtle, but you have to be aware, like when they're writing this phonemic part of the phonemic, talking about stress. Sorry, not phonemic script. Talking about stress. They put this apostrophe here and this comma here to indicate where the stress is. That comes in hand with the phonemic script as well, where you talk about the different stresses that happen in the word and whether or not the speaker is stressing their words properly in the right place or if they're mispronouncing them because of improper stress. So that's the explanation of all those things. Other tendencies. Right, so primary stress in most words ending in suffixes ick and ickle, placed on the syllable immediately preceding the ick suffix. Historic, hysterical, catastrophic, elliptical, simplistic, manic, logical, etc. So that's actually a good point. I was wondering how much you can talk about the IC ending and the ICAL endings. Comparative and superlative forms, disyllabic adjectives, blah, 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 blah. Same stress as the root word. Red, redder, reddest, pretty, prettier, prettiest. Present and past participles retain the same stress as the root word. Work, working, worked, interest, interesting, interested. So you see how that stress all stays on the same root word. And so on and so on, including comments for phonology. Yeah, wow. So there you go. There. This is the phonemic script that you have to be aware of. So geography is this geography, and again, notice the apostrophe at the beginning there that denotes the stress at the beginning of the word, and then geographic becomes this, where it has two stresses. All of a sudden, there's geographic. So there's weak stress here and strong stress here. And so that's one of the things that you do have to be aware of when you're dealing with this, because if you're dealing with phonology and they give you a script, you have to understand how to break down the words and write them down in the phonemic script. Or if you're not writing them down, you have to understand how to read it and understand where the learner is putting the stress and whether that stress is correct or incorrect. And no, you can't say the test was wrong and they transcribed it wrong. I don't think you can use that if the test is wrong, then you have to explain why, basically, and give an example. So phonology, this is actually a very important chapter, apparently, important unit. I've been reading this one down here, Sound Foundations by Adrian Underhill. This is the recommended reading. About Language is also, this is the one that's full of exercises and tasks for English teachers, basically. English Phonetics and Phonology, haven't read that one. Pronunciation of English, that just sounds like a riveting read. Maybe, who knows, but have not read that one either. So this stuff, I mean, if you read Sound Foundations, that's going to give you a pretty good basis from which to work. It's yeah, it is kind of technical. It's odd because he describes how the mouth moves and the muscles move, which you might not understand your mouth to move that way, or you might not understand the speaking process to work in that way. So it's a little bit awkward to read about the description of how he is saying that your tongue is moving in your mouth when you pronounce a certain vowel, or how your airway blocks off when it's pronouncing a consonant, voiced or unvoiced consonant. So things like that. It's not distracting. Not is it disturbing? It's odd. It's just awkward. And then you sit there mouthing these words to yourself. Pronunciation. I, T, tu, T, tu. And understanding how your tongue is moving in your mouth. And yet he's explaining it. He's doing his best to narrate the the millisecond by millisecond events that are going on with your mouth muscles while you're saying the words T and tu. T as in T-E-A, the I dot dot, and tu is the U with the dot dot, I think. I can't remember. Oh, goodness, yeah. Make sure you check the IPA graphic chart for yourself as well. IPA phonemic chart is what I'm referring to, where they give you all the sounds of the English language. Language of Lexis. So Lexis, again, deals with words, vocabulary as a whole, sense relations, word families, child, children, childhood, childish. So that's very important if you're trying to build up vocabulary, help your learners deal with root words. And so it's helpful in for reading, and not so much for speaking, of course, but for reading and writing, being able to understand how to make different words like this. Collocations, so how words go together. Catch, like you catch a cold. Take a nap, or whatever. I don't know why I'm saying trap. Yeah, you wouldn't trap a cold. But you could trap a cold, you could trap a virus, but you wouldn't take a cold. You would catch a cold. Trap a cold. You can trap a cold if you're referring to quarantining someone, basically, or stopping it like in a lab. It sort of gives the a sense of being in a laboratory setting rather than in a personal manner. A personal manner, it would be you catch a cold. You certainly wouldn't take a cold or take a cold. No, that's inappropriate. It doesn't collocate properly. Lexical fields. How words are grouped together, semantic umbrellas, menu, waiter, customer, diner, meal, dish, and so on. So those are all sort of part of one set of words, and then connotation and style. Feels knackered, rather fatigued. Yes. Okay, so someone feels knackered, probably British. Rather fatigued, very academic, I would say. Bloody well tired. Bloody well, actually, I would say F sharp tired. I think that's probably what I'd say. Oh, I'm just bloody well tired. There you go. That's because I work with a lot of British people. They say bloody well, and bollocks. They say bollocks quite a bit. Feel knackered. I think I say knackered as well. Essential reading. Read chapters 1 and 2 of Scott Thornbury's How to Teach Vocabulary. Have I done this chapter? I don't remember reading that. Looks like I did. Wow, I did the task. Okay, all right. Well, I'm gonna have to redo that. I'm gonna have to reread this because I don't remember reading it. So yeah, reads chapters 1 and 2 of Scott Thornbury's How to Teach Vocabulary. Scott Thornbury has basically written most of the books and textbooks for the ESL language industry over the last 20 years. He was very active in the 2000s, from 2000 to 2010. He has some later books as well, but he's pretty thorough. And they're not just like cheap derivatives of one another. It's not like someone who's just, reformulating reformatting their book for different markets. All of his books are sort of skill specific, and some of them are a bit longer than others. Some of them are a bit more general than others, but there's a lot of them that are very specific. How to teach vocabulary, grammar, speaking, listening, writing, reading, everything. So this guy is sort of one of the big names in the ESL industry reading. And then it deals with the last part we dealt with Unit 4 here is Paper 1, Task 4. And what is this one? Oh, goodness, I can't remember what this one is. Longer written response. 20 marks out of 100. Should only take you 15 minutes. Here we go. So for this task, identify 4 strengths and 4 weaknesses total. They have to address at least 1 strength or 1 weakness. So you can't just do 4 weaknesses or 4 strengths. Now, this we have been told repeatedly. Identify 4 strengths. It's not 8 total. It's 4 bullet points total that you have to make, and it has to be at least 1 strength and 1 weakness. And so the other 2 that you include should either be a strength or a weakness. Do not do 8. If you do 8, they will only mark the first 4, and they go from side to side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then they stop reading. They don't read anymore. 4 strengths and weaknesses total, which means 4 bullet points, and that's all you have to do. Again, so it could be 3 weaknesses and 1 strength. It could be 3 strengths and 1 weakness, or it can be 2 weaknesses and 2 strengths, and that's your 4 total. Again, use your brain to dump out all the terminology that you've been trying to cram into it. This is where they give you the sort of a right here. So this is an example of what the task could be. Write about a holiday you'll never forget. Here they give you the example passage. And the Delta Handbook, that's the word I was looking for, not guidebook. Delta Handbook for Teachers and Candidates, 2015 edition. They give you an example. Now this is where it can get confusing, because in the handbook, they give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Only do 4. They've given you all of them because they want to give you an example of the organization, the accuracy of grammar, the range and accuracy of the lexis, and the cohesion. So here, they only deal with what? Organization, range of lexis. They don't deal with accuracy of grammar. So this guy did not do very well with grammar. It's a key weakness. So, but here you notice the key weaknesses are grammar, lexis, cohesion. No organization. So again, if you were doing this paper, if this was you could do key strength is organization, but grammar sucks, lexis sucks, and cohesion sucks. You can do that. Or organization is great, the range of lexis is great, but the accuracy of lexis is bad, and cohesion is terrible as well. So those are 4 total. So 4 total, not 8, which is, when you read the handbook, it seems to indicate that you should be doing 8 bullet points, which is not true at all. It's 2. You can do 2 of each if you want. If you want to be fair to the strengths and weaknesses, just do 2 of each. 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses. And again, that's for paper 1, task 4. All right, and I didn't submit this one. I never got around to doing it, but anyway, hidden resources. End of the unit. Done. So that is Unit 4 for the Delta Module 1. Again, dealing with discourse, which is just talking about talking, writing and incorporating writing lessons, writing in your lessons, listening and how to find good resources for it, phonology, how to break down words and listen and analyze stress of words and how to teach that, and then also lexis, so dealing a lot with vocabulary building and things like that. And of course, paper 1, task 4, in which you have to identify strengths and weaknesses of a submission. All right, folks, hope you enjoyed that. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below in the comment area. Be happy to help you along. I have not written the Delta just yet. That's going to be in December of this year. So the part of me doing these videos is to remind myself what I've done and to remind myself of what I have to do. but also if people are thinking about doing the Delta Module 1 exam or the course. Again, as I said at the beginning of this video, the course is there to give you a structured schedule, a structured sort of syllabus, a structure to follow that you can prepare week by week, day by day, leading into the exam. So exams, again, take place in December and June, so only twice a year, and that's it. You don't need to take the course, but it's helpful to have someone else who's been an examiner, who's usually teaching the course or instructing the course, to ask questions about. And they give you sort of an insider's view of what they have seen before in terms of other exams, other candidates where people have got things right and where they've gone wrong. And the big thing seems to be the two things that stand out so far as I can tell is terminology. So you have to talk in very technical terms specific to ELT, English language teaching. And then also bullet points. So don't write flowery prose in your responses. Bullet points, bullet points, bullet points. And make sure you are accurate in your terminology, accurate in your analysis, and accurate in your examples. Because if you get one of those wrong, I'm not sure how they divide up the point. It depends on which part you're actually on, to tell you the truth. But there you go. Bullet points and terminology. Or terminology and bullet points. Those are the two main things I've sort of gotten from my instructors so far. Okay, folks, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you liked that. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any comments or questions,